Hey everyone. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to go over the course syllabus with you, um, really just to hit the highlights and explain a few things that might seem a little confusing as you're reading through the syllabus. Um, we're not going to go through every single section of it. So go ahead and pull it up here. Remember, you can find the syllabus in two different places. If you're watching this video, then you're here in the week 1 module under the syllabus review subtab. And there is a link to the syllabus as a Word document here on this page that you can click and download if you prefer it as a Word document. But remember, it is also up under the Getting Started section as a PDF. So you have two ways of accessing it. Okay, but we're going to go through it here briefly. And again, just hit some of the highlights. So the first thing I always like to call attention to is this area up here that lets you know what ATA has decided this course should entail in terms of time spent working on it. So it is a 4 credit hour course, which means we have 40 hours of lecture, so 40 contact hours throughout the term. So spread over 10 weeks, that's 4 hours a week. If we were taking this course on campus, those are the 4 hours a week that you would be spending in the classroom with me. All right. And then we also have additional outside hours, 80 hours. So that would be spread over 10 weeks, 8 hours a week just spent on homework, essentially. So if we were on campus, that would be 4 hours a week in the classroom, and then an additional 8 hours a week that you would be spending on the course at home, like working on assignments, reading the chapters, things like that. So it's an online course, right? So you don't come to campus and spend those 4 hours a week in the classroom with me, but it's still expected that you will be spending a total of 12 hours a week on this class, all right? So I just like to point it out that it is there on the syllabus. That is not something that I created. That is what ATA, when they designed the program, they go through each course and determine how many credit hours, how many contact hours, and how many additional outside hours is expected. Okay, so 12 hours a week for this class. The book for this class, I'm going to show you a picture. It's probably going to be backwards. Sorry about that. But it does look like this, right? So it is the Think, Critical Thinking and Logic Skills for Everyday Life by Judith Voss. 5th edition. We will be using the book throughout the whole term. We will cover all but one chapter of the book. So you do want to try to get it right away if you haven't already done so. What we will be doing in this class, it's all about critical thinking. So we're going to identify and use critical thinking skills, processes, and techniques that will assist you in your careers and personal lives. You're going to develop the ability to investigate and evaluate thinking from different viewpoints, and synthesize your own position based on evidence and using critical thinking skills. It's really an interesting class, I think, because it is something that is, critical thinking skills are super important in the workplace. But as you're going to see throughout the term, these critical thinking skills really should be applied to every facet of life. And to be a responsible citizen and to interact with the world and the people therein effectively, critical thinking skills are pretty crucial. All right. Take a look at the course objectives here if you want. I'm not really going to go through them, but they're there if you want to look at them. These are the items that the class is expected to teach you, that by the end of the term, you have a good grasp and set of skills to leave the course with. All right. Let's see, what else do we want to do? As a reminder, our grading scale, an A is a 90 to 100, a B is, 80 to 89. A C is 70 to 79, but just remember that you have to maintain a 70% or above in order to pass the course. Where would those grades be coming from? We have it broken down into 4 different categories for this class. We have our weekly discussions, which I believe there's one almost every week, and they total 15% of your overall grade. We have our weekly assignments, which include most weeks will be vocab slides, written responses, and a critical thinking issue. Those all combined throughout the term are worth 35% of your overall grade. And then you'll have 2 essays. There'll be 1 essay midway through the term, and it will be on a conspiracy theory of your choosing. That will be worth 25% of your grade. And then we have our reflective essay at the end of the term, which is really about your personal growth and your journey in the course and, you know, learning all of those skills and sort of applying them to yourself. So it's reflective, it is about you. That will be worth 25% of your grade as well. Okay. Other information here, different policies for ATA if you want to take a look at those and need a reminder. Couple of online resources here that you can have the links for to do research and things like that. And then we have our course outline for the term. This is a useful tool for sort of planning ahead, seeing when certain items are due, when we might have like a bigger week where we're covering multiple chapters. If we're covering, you know, 3 chapters in a week, you're going to know that the homework is going to be a, you know, few more vocab words, few more questions on the written responses. But this doesn't really give you a lot of detailed information about the lessons or assignments. That will come on Brightspace. But the course outline, again, is a nice, you know, tool to have just to have sort of a general overview of how the course is going to flow throughout the term. You can see you've got your lesson here for week 1, and then the assignments for week 1 that are due Sunday night of week 1. I think week 2, you would cover chapters 2 and 3. These assignments that'll be due the Sunday of week 2, and so on and so forth. I have some highlighted items down here in weeks 5 and 6 because that is when we will be working on that conspiracy theory essay. You're going to learn about it in week 1, and you'll have a very small assignment associated with it in week 2, very small assignment. And then in week 5 is when we really start working on it. That is when it will be officially assigned. So we'll have some lessons on conspiracy theories. You'll begin working on the essay. Week 6, we just do a repeat in terms of the lessons. You'll have a discussion thrown in, and then the conspiracy theory essay will be due at the end of week 6. So highlighted areas there, just let you know that's a big item. Right, and then you can see what we'll be covering after that, a few more chapters from the book. And then we get to week 9, where we do a reflective essay overview, where I basically give you the questions that you'll need to be answering in that reflective essay. But it won't actually be due until the Tuesday of week 10. Right? So again, lots of highlighted information here right at the end of the term, just as a reminder of due dates and deadlines and when the course ends. Remember, week 10 is a short week, so it opens on Monday, but it closes Thursday night of week 10. You don't get all the way until Sunday. So again, that's why the dates are highlighted. Then we have my personal policies. You know, I don't really think that I need to talk about the respect policy. However, you know, this class in particular, you know, in our discussions, we will be looking at issues that, you know, could potentially be debatable in different ways. And so when you are engaging with each other in the discussions, just remember to be respectful, you know, and professional. Attendance policy, I don't have any additional attendance requirements beyond what ATA has. Which remember, ATA says that if you miss more than 20% of a course's lecture hours, you are at risk for being administratively withdrawn. So 20% would be 2 weeks. So if you're marked absent 2 weeks, that's your limit. Doesn't matter if it's in a row or not. It could be an absence in week 2 and an absence in week 5. And anything beyond that, you are then at risk of being withdrawn from the course. I always tell students to treat this as if it is an on-campus class. So, you know, if you can't do the work that week, still trigger your attendance and then catch up, right? That's the beauty of an online class, is if you were on campus and you were sick and couldn't come in that day, you're absent. But with an online class, you have 7 days to trigger your attendance, even if you fall behind on the work, right? So always trigger your attendance every week, even if you're turning the work in late, okay? And if you start to fall behind, just like you would with an on-campus class, if you had to, miss a week, you would probably reach out to your instructor. So do that here in online classes as well. Yeah, you're triggering your attendance, but if something has come up that week and you're not able to do the work, reach out. And if something happens where you're not even able to trigger attendance, which it happens, reach out, right? But there's no additional penalties or whatnot with attendance. I don't do that. Late work policy. All right, so you really don't want to get to a point where you're having to worry about a late work policy for an assignment. Sure, it's a lot of work. Of course, it's not, it's not a walk in the park. So it is going to happen where you're going to need to turn something in late. So I do want you to be aware of just how late it has to be for points to be taken off. So we'll start with our weekly discussion. The discussions are due every Sunday night, right? They will remain open for an additional week, but if you're posting to a discussion during that additional week, it's only for 50% credit, right? After that second week, the discussion closes for good and you will no longer have access to it. The only exception to that policy is that in week 9, the week 9 discussion, closes at the end of week 9. The week 10 discussion closes the Thursday night of week 10. Remember, it's a short week, right? But weeks 1 through 8, you want to post during the week of, just to get those points. They're easy points. But if something happens and you are posting in the following week, you will be able to do so, but at a 50% reduction. After that, the discussion will no longer be available after that second week. Our weekly assignments. So these are our vocab slides, our written responses, and our critical thinking issue. All right. Anything past 1 week gets a 10% reduction for every week it's late. So I always tell students, like week 1, the work is due Sunday night of week 1, and then Monday, week 2 begins. If you're submitting a week 1 item, any, vocab slides, written response, or critical thinking issue during week 2, more than likely, you're not going to get any points taken off. It's once week 2 ends, and then we're into week 3. If you're submitting something from week 1, then the 10% reduction starts to take effect, and every additional week it's late is an additional 10%. I do have a late work deadline though. So for those 3 types of assignments, the vocab slides, the written responses, and the critical thinking issue, anything from weeks 1 through 7 have to be submitted by the end of week 8. Week 8 is the deadline for anything from weeks 1 through 7. The work from week 8, if you have to turn that in late, I will accept it during week 9. By the time we get to the end of week 9, there should be no missing items. You should only be worrying about the items assigned for weeks 9 and 10. Got it? All right, our conspiracy theory essay. It will be assigned officially in week 5, and it will be due by the end of week 6. If you are submitting your conspiracy theory essay sometime during week 7, no late points will be deducted. I give you that week leeway. That way, I know it's tough, especially in the middle of the term. But if you submit the conspiracy theory essay during week 8, then that 10% policy kicks into effect for each additional late. And I really don't want to accept the conspiracy theory past week 8, because at that point you really need to be focusing on the reflective essay. The reflective essay, it will be assigned in week 9 and due on the Tuesday of week 10, because week 10 is a short week. The course ends Thursday night. I need time to grade the reflective essays because final grades for the course will be due Friday afternoon. So essentially I give you 1 extra day with a 10% reduction. So the reflective essay will be due the Tuesday of week 10. You get it in by then, there will be no late points taken off. If you submit it the Wednesday of week 10, there is a 10% point reduction right off the top. I will not accept it after Wednesday night because, again, the course ends Thursday and I need time to grade them. Right? Those are the late work policies. You know, my biggest advice is just to do the best you can to not fall behind. You know, especially more than a week behind, right? You're submitting things a couple days late, that's really not a big deal at all. It's once it starts to pile up and then we have some problems and, you know, we have to be held accountable for letting the work pile up too much. If you ever are wondering, the late work policy here in the syllabus, there for your reference, but always reach out to me as well, especially if you have, you know, some crazy stuff going on. Life can get really crazy. You know, school can get really crazy. Work can get really crazy. It's, you know, I'm willing to work with students if they are communicating with me. These late work policies are really there for the students who are just missing in action. So as long as you're communicating with me, you know, chances are we're not going to have a real big problem with these policies. But they are there just so that you're aware. Plagiarism policy. This is a big one because especially for that conspiracy theory essay, you will be using some outside sources. You really shouldn't need to use any outside sources for any of the other assignments that we work on. It's certainly not required to use outside sources for our vocab slides, the written responses, and the critical thinking issue assignment. If by chance you feel like there is a need to go to outside sources for any of those assignments, please make sure that you are using that source responsibly, meaning if you are using information from the source, provide a citation, right? And then it's somewhere on the assignment, give me the reference entry for that source. If you're taking information from that source, word for word, verbatim, make sure it's in quotes. That lets me know that you didn't paraphrase it and put it in your own words, that it is literally straight from the source, right? So using sources responsibly. For the conspiracy theory essay, you will be using outside sources for that. So make sure that you are familiar with how to use sources responsibly. And if that is still not something that you are, you know, confident about yet, in our Brightspace course page, where the weekly modules are, at the very bottom is sort of a bonus material tab, and it has all of the lessons that I use for my composition courses. So basic essay writing skills, APA research, right? So I provide all of that there in that bonus content in case you need a little bit of extra help, a little bit of a refresher. So again, when you're using sources, if you're choosing to use them for the weekly assignments, make sure you're using them responsibly. You'll be required to use them for the conspiracy theory essay. Make sure you're using them responsibly. But beyond that, use your own ideas. When you are doing a discussion, there should be no need to use outside sources for those. The discussion is all about your ideas, your words, right? Should be no outside sources. And again, like I said, most of the weekly assignments that do not require outside sources. It should be your answers, your ideas. Most of the conspiracy theory essay should be your ideas. Yes, you will need to use some sources for it, but it's still you discussing the conspiracy theory, relating it to the course material that we have covered in weeks 1 through 5. It's, make sure that you are not using any type of source unethically. Okay. I run assignments through a plagiarism checker. I look for these things. But trust yourself that you can do the work, and that if there are big problems with the work you turn in, I will let you know, and you'll be given a chance to redo it if for some reason you scored really badly on it. But don't resort to cheating, right? Okay. Let's take a look here. I want to explain a little bit. We've already kind of talked about these methods for evaluating students, our grading categories. Remember, we got our discussion forums. First post is always due on Thursday night so that everyone has plenty of time and options to choose from to respond to classmates by Sunday night, which is when the discussion is technically due. It will remain open for an additional week, but at 50%, instead of 100%. And all of the discussions combined make up 15% of your overall grade. Our weekly assignments, remember, these are your vocab slides. So for every week, whatever chapters we're covering that week, I will have chosen specific vocab words, and you will create a PowerPoint presentation of those words and definitions. Written responses, these are a little more in depth, just asking you questions related to the material in the chapters that week, sort of asking you to apply some of the knowledge and skills that we learned about that week. Then we have our critical thinking issue. We will have one of those most weeks as well. And those come from the end of the chapters. Each chapter ends with a critical thinking issue. We won't be covering them all, but you'll actually have options. You'll be sort of, if we cover one chapter that week, it has to be the critical thinking issue from the end of that chapter. If we cover 2 chapters in a week, then you'll get the option of which critical thinking issue you want to work with. And it's explained in the assignment instructions each week. But that is taking sort of the knowledge and skills and applying them on an even deeper level than what the written response questions do. Right? Remember, all of those, and the written responses and critical thinking issues are also file uploads. Obviously, the vocabulary slides are a file upload because it's PowerPoint or some type of slide, presentation that you'll upload. The written responses and critical thinking issue will also be file uploads. I provide you a Word document in the instructions that you can use as your template. You can just download it and type in your answers and then save it and re-upload it. Or if you need to use like Google Docs or a PDF or OpenDoc, things like that, that is also fine. The only format that does not transfer well for me is dot pages, which I believe is like a MacBook kind of deal. I cannot open those. So, but pretty much any other file format seems to work just fine. The conspiracy theory essay and reflective essay, those will also be file uploads. So again, Word doc, Google Doc, PDF, OpenDoc, any file format that works other than dot pages. For all of those, for the vocab slide, the written response, critical thinking issue, and both essays, there will be formal rubrics used to grade them. Right? So don't forget all of these up here. Right? Like I said, the discussion, 15% of your overall grade, weekly assignments are 35%, and each of the essays is 25% of your grade. All right. I think that's it. We have the acknowledgement form down here that you really don't need to do anything with. This is if it's an on-campus class, because you'll even see in lieu of filling out this form, there will be an assignment in week 1 for which you will state that you've downloaded and read the syllabus. So you really don't need to worry about this page at all. Just and it's not even there. You'll let me know in that assignment in week 1 that you have read through the syllabus. So I think that's it, really. A lot of this gets explained, each type of assignment gets explained in more detail the first time that you have that type of assignment. There's always a video of instructions. Keep in mind those late work policies, but definitely if you are reaching out and communicating with me, there shouldn't be a real big problem, but do your best to stay caught up so that you don't fall behind and start struggling. All right. That's it for the syllabus. And let me know if you have any questions about it now or at any point throughout the term. Otherwise, you are free to go ahead and move on.